Everyone, welcome to our summer 2022 Elder Law Day series. My name is Christy McKenzie. I am the Assistant Coordinator of Neighborhood Services here in the Department of Senior Services with Erie County. I would like to take a minute to thank those individuals who have helped make this summer series possible again. Our County Executive Mark Polenkars, Karen Nicholson, the Center for Elder Law and Justice CEO, and our Senior Services Commissioner, Angela Aranucci. We'll be accepting questions throughout the presentation and answering them towards the end. Feel free to type in our chat box. Please refrain from using any personal information in that chat box. We also will be recording this presentation and posting it on our website, the same place you registered, at erie.gov/ELD. Please allow me to introduce our guest speakers. Erin Riker. Erin is a technology-based legal service attorney for the Center for Elder Law and Justice, where she manages their senior financial safety tool, the Senior Legal Risk Detector, the Mobile Legal Unit, and the Senior Legal Advice Helpline. And Vikram Jagadish. Vikram is a trial attorney at the Federal Trade Commission, working in the Northeast Regional Office. He investigates and litigates a wide variety of fraud cases involving vulnerable victims, including the elderly. Erin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Christine. And thank you everyone for coming. Welcome to our presentation. You've been scammed, now what? We'll cover recovery options and FTC resources for scam victims. Just a disclaimer, the information presented during our webinar is for informational purposes only. It does not constitute legal advice. It doesn't form any attorney-client relationship between you and the presenter, the Center for Elder Law and Justice, or the FTC. Contact information will be provided at the end for inquiries about legal assistance if you'd like it. And the statements made represent the sole views of the presenters and do not represent the views of the FTC or any individual commissioner. So I'm just going to give you a brief roadmap. We are going to briefly go through Scams 101 and some common red flags. And then we're going to get into specific things that you can do or your friends and loved ones can do if they've been scammed. These are specific recovery options you can take to stop the scam from continuing and to recover from it, to prevent yourself from being scammed further. And then Vikram is going to go into a little more detail into what the FTC can do for scam victims. Okay, a scam is, as we know, any false or misleading attempt to take money away from another person. These can be perpetrated by strangers. That's what people think of most often when they think of scams is, you know, getting an email saying that a Nigerian prince needs to move $1 million out of the country, or, you know, getting a message saying, you know, someone on social media has fallen in love with you. But they can also be perpetrated by friends or family members through powers of attorney that are used inappropriately or by inappropriately gaining access to someone's financial assets or information. And these scams, most importantly, are not just online. A lot of people think that, you know, scams take place on the internet. They're very concerned with sharing their information over the internet. And that's important to be concerned about that. But the most common contact with scammers, especially stranger scammers unknown to the victim, is by phone, either by talking or by text message. So the phone scams are something that people also need to be very, very aware of. They are still very prevalent, and they're the most common way that scammers get a hold of people in order to start the scam. And scams capitalize on human emotion. That's why they work. Scammers are very good at creating a sense of urgency. They can, you know, make you believe that they're offering you a deal that is only available to you for a limited amount of time, that they can, you know, they can get you in on an investment opportunity, but only if you act right now. They capitalize on that sense of urgency, and they also capitalize on a need for human connection. This is especially prevalent with seniors who are more likely to be home, they're retired, they may not see, you know, their family or their friends very often or as often as they used to when they were younger. And during the pandemic especially, people were inside their homes and there's this need for connection. Scammers know about this and they capitalize on it. They capitalize on people's willingness to help. We see this all the time with charity scams. In the wake of natural disasters, mass shootings, other tragedies, they will set up fake GoFundMe's. They will, get people who just want to help and maybe don't know how to help. Scammers will capitalize on the fact that people don't know the legitimate ways to help in these situations, and they will make sure that they try and get your money before you can send it to a legitimate organization. They can capitalize on people's insecurity about finances, particularly right now with the economy being the way it is, with inflation causing prices on everything to go up. They can capitalize on this through offering get rich quick schemes, employment scams involving offering a product or service at a significantly lower price than what's on the general market. And they get people with this because people right now especially are insecure about their financial situation. The world has kind of turned their finances upside down, and that makes them vulnerable. Scammers know that, and they can capitalize on it. They can also capitalize on people's pride and standing in the community, through essentially what's extortion scams. Scammers can contact people and say that they have inappropriate pictures of them or inappropriate videos, that they have a search history that involves searching for inappropriate things, and they're going to send it to their friends and family, or they're going to publicize it. This one is very common, and people, their brains, when they read that someone has compromising information on them, their brains aren't thinking logically. Their brains are thinking emotionally. Their brains are thinking, I need to stop that, and not necessarily stopping to think, is this true or not? Scammers can capitalize on the scarcity mindset. This was especially true in the pandemic, but still supply chain issues plague us even into 2022. Scammers will offer a product or a service that's not available very often, or that's subject to supply chain issues. During the pandemic, this was masks and cleaning products. Now it could be baby formula or other groceries that are having supply chain issues. And they can capitalize on the fact that people know that these products and services are not widely available, and they want to get them through any means necessary. That makes them more likely to fall for a scam. The most common red flags, the first one is payment methods. The scammers choose payment methods that they know are not easily reversed. Scammers are not often going to ask for your credit card, because you can call your credit card company and reverse a charge if you realize it's a scam. Scammers are going to demand payment through gift cards, Target gift cards, Amazon gift cards, Visa prepaid gift cards. They may refer to these as verification cards. They will ask for payment through cash apps like PayPal or Venmo. They will ask you to send cash through the mail. These are payment methods that are not easily reversed. And so if someone is offering you a product or a service, or if someone is asking for a charitable contribution and they're asking for it to be provided only in these methods, then that's a red flag that you may not be dealing with a legitimate organization. Another red flag is anything that seems too good to be true. Like we talked about, offering a product or a service for a significantly lower price than at the general market, guaranteeing a supply of a product that's currently scarce. If someone says to you, I have 100 cans of baby formula that I can give you for $10 each, anyone who's bought baby formula recently knows that it costs a lot more than $10 a can, and no one's got 100 cans of it anywhere. If a scammer if someone contacts you offering that kind of low price and that kind of guarantee of a supply, if it seems too good to be true, it most likely is. That's a huge red flag that you're not dealing with someone legitimate. Also, if you receive an email claiming to be from an organization and the email addresses don't match that sender's name or organization, that's another red flag. If you get an email from Citibank saying your account is compromised, but the email came from so-and-so at gmail.com or at iCloud or Yahoo, that's a red flag that is not someone legitimately from Citibank. If someone's emailing you from the bank, their email is going to come from @citibank.com. The use of cashiers or certified checks is a red flag, and this is one that trips people up because people think of certified checks as being just that. A certified check is a guarantee that, someone has this much money in the bank, they've taken it out through a certified check, and they're sending it to you. Certified checks are very easily faked. They're forged pretty easily. And by the time when you deposit it in your bank account, they may show as being available right away. But by the time your bank has sent it back to the originating bank and then verified that it's in fact fraudulent, you may have already taken that money out of your account, and then that money is gone. That can cause people to overdraw. It can cause them to be in trouble with their own financial institution. So someone offering to send you a certified check or a cashier's check, that is a red flag that it may not be a legitimate person that you're dealing with. A request to deposit money into your account and then send it to someone else, this is essentially turning the scam victim into a money mule. This is often how scammers operate money laundering operations. And not only is this a red flag, but it could have criminal implications for the victim, because being a money mule means that you may be a conspirator in that person's scam. So anytime someone requests you to deposit money into your account and then send it to someone else, there are almost no legitimate reasons why they couldn't just send it to that person themselves. So that is almost always going to be a scam. Any unsolicited communication via phone, email, or social media should be suspect. If someone tries to contact you via social media and you click on their profile and you see that it's just been created last month and it doesn't have a whole lot of followers, it's not following a whole lot of people yet, that's a red flag that it may not be legitimate. If someone calls or emails you out of the blue, asking for personal information, asking for money, asking to establish a connection, very often scammers won't necessarily ask for money on the first try. They will try and establish a connection first. But really, in this day and age, people should be aware of any unsolicited communication via phone, email, or social media. Anytime someone contacts you and you didn't initiate that contact, then that's a chance that it may be someone on the other end who's not legitimate. Any types of threats of arrest or imprisonment that are delivered via phone, email, or text. Again, when people see an email or a telephone call or a text message saying that the IRS wants to arrest them or someone is going to arrest them because they think they've committed Social Security fraud, the emotional part of their brain kicks in. They're not necessarily thinking that if someone wants to arrest me, they need to send the police with an arrest warrant to do that. And those people arrive in person, they have arrest warrant paperwork, and it doesn't happen via email, phone, or text. So that's why we remind people, it seems like common sense now, but we need to remind people over and over again that any threat of arrest or imprisonment is going to happen in person with a arrest warrant. It's not going to happen via phone or email or text message. Any vague promises of altruism or charitable use for funds that don't get into specifics. People will use crowdsourced fundraising like GoFundMe, or they will use copycat Cash App account names that sound like a charity, but they're not that actual charity. If you get solicitations for charitable donations, you should ask for specific information in writing about what that charity is going to and how your money will be used. Legitimate charities will have this information and they will be able to send it to you. Organizations that are not legitimate will fight you on asking for this because they don't have this information available. So it's a great way to tell which one is legitimate and which one is not, is if you ask them for something to be sent to you in writing. And finally, unverified social media accounts claiming to be celebrities or well-known business entities. On the major social media platforms, if someone is a well-known business entity or a celebrity, they will have the blue check mark next to their name. That means that they've been verified by the social media entity. That means that they know that they are who they're claiming to be. If you're seeing someone claiming to be a well-known business or claiming to be representing a well-known business, they don't have that blue check by their name, that means they're very likely not legitimate. Okay, so we've talked about some red flags for scams. We've talked about what scams look like in general, but what happens if you've already been scammed? What do you do then? The first thing and the most important thing that everyone should remember is that it is not your fault. Scammers have immense amount of practice and resources. They are very good at coercion. They are very good at emotional manipulation. They are good at what they do. They have a lot of practice at it, and they can take advantage of people at any level of education, at any age, at any amount of financial means. No one is immune to this. There are people with PhDs who get scammed. There are people who are well-known business members who get scammed. There are people who are in law enforcement or attorneys who are scammed. It is not your fault. And the reason we want people to remember this first is because if someone's a victim of a scam and they think to themselves, I should have known better, or this is on me because I didn't realize it was a scam, they're less likely to seek help right away. And that can have very real consequences. If you've been scammed, the best thing to do is to seek help right away, as soon as possible. Report it to as many agencies as you can. We'll talk about which ones to report to in a moment. And in order to do that, people have to keep reminding themselves over and over again, it is not their fault. This is the scammer's fault. They're the one that did this to you. It's not a thing where the victim should have known better. We're not about victim blaming. People need to remember that it is not their fault. And then, they will feel less embarrassed about seeking help early in the process. If someone suspects a scam, they should cease all communication with the scammer. Just stop it cold turkey. They should be prepared once they cease that communication for increased attempts at communication from the scammer. The scammer wants to keep you on the hook. They want to keep you communicating because that is the only way they're going to keep getting money from you. The scammer may escalate to threats of criminal action. They may include threats against, of physical violence. They may just start spamming you with communications at all hours of the day or night. And it can make it really difficult to stop communicating with them. But the important thing is to cease all communication. Just shut that valve off right away. And then you can get on with the process of rebuilding your life. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the presentation, but the method you use to transfer money to the scammer can determine the likelihood that you will get your money back. The gift cards, wire transfers, Cash App transactions, convincing people to take out loans or lines of credit from their bank are very popular with scammers because they are difficult to reverse. With wire transfers, there is something known as a financial fraud kill chain that can stop a wire transfer from going to a scammer. However, this is for international transfers only, transfers of $50,000 or more, and only if they catch it within 72 hours of the transfer being initiated. So the wire transfer is also very difficult to reverse. What you want to do when you've been scammed is protect your finances. Change your account numbers for banks or credit cards that were compromised. Alert your bank and your financial institution to the scam. Even if you think they may not have gotten to that specific bank or that specific credit card, alert them to the scam anyways. Financial institutions are good at protecting you if you let them know that you feel your information may have been compromised. They can add extra protections to your account. They can watch it more closely for suspicious transactions. They can change your account numbers and send you new bank cards. They can do a lot of things to protect you, but you have to let them know that you've been scammed. And they see this all the time. You are not going to be the first person who's ever called them and said, I've been the victim of a scam. I need to protect my bank account. I need to protect my credit card. So just remember that. And, that goes back to the it's not your fault that you need to remember during this entire process of recovering from scams. We recommend that people run their credit report regularly and review it for inaccurate information. If someone has your social security number, it's very easy for them to steal your identity. If someone steals your identity, one of the first ways you might find out about that is if accounts show up on your credit report that you don't know about. If a credit card shows up from an entity that you've never heard of and you've never opened that account, if a loan or a line of credit that you know you didn't take out is on there, that's a red flag that someone has your information and is using it to scam you. You can put fraud alerts and credit freezes on your credit report to prevent fraudulent accounts. Fraud alerts and credit freezes are a little bit different from each other. A fraud alert is the less drastic option. It just lets the credit reporting agencies know that you've been the victim of a scam, you think you've been the victim of a scam. And so when you open credit with any institution, or when your credit is run by an institution, they will take additional steps to verify that it is really you. A credit freeze is the nuclear option. This means that no new credit can be opened in your name at all. You can put these credit freezes in place with the major credit reporting agencies. If you need to open credit then later, you would need to call them and remove the freeze before you do that. It's a good option for someone if they know that they've been scammed, if someone's already opening accounts in their name, if their social security number in particular has been compromised, and if they know they're not going to need new credit in the near future, if they're not looking to buy a house or a car, if they're not looking to open up another credit card, the credit freeze might be a good option for them. But remember, this is the nuclear option. This stops any new credit from being opened in your name unless you then take steps to remove the freeze first. Another thing we recommend is opting out of pre-screened offers to reduce the potential for scams. You can opt out of these pre-screened offers, and that will reduce the amount of junk mail that gets sent to your house. When you open up your mailbox and you have letters from 10 different banks offering you credit cards that you've been pre-selected to apply for or that you've been pre-approved for, these are those pre-screened offers. Credit card companies will scan credit reports en masse to get identifying or names and addresses of people who meet certain criteria. Say they might order everyone whose credit score is over a 700 and then send these pre-screened offers out to everyone. If you opt out of those pre-screened offers, your information will never be included in those data tranches. And so you won't get those pre-screened offers from the credit card companies. This reduces the potential for scam because it dramatically reduces the amount of junk mail that you get. And scammers love to send you mail about offers, and they love to send you mail about scams. And if you are getting a lot less junk mail, then you are more likely to identify something that is fraudulent, because especially if you opt out of these pre-screened offers, legitimate companies are not going to send you offers for loans or credit cards or anything of that nature. We recommend that you learn how to prevent future scams because people who have been scammed once are much more likely to be scammed again in the future. Scammers buy and sell lists of scam victims. So people who've been targeted once, they're more likely to be targeted again. Scammers will buy and sell lists of really anyone who even answers the phone, whether or not they fall for the scam or not. If you've answered a phone call from a scammer, if you've ever clicked on a text or an email link from a scammer, that's them verifying that there is a real person on the end of that phone number or on the end of that email address. And they will sell those lists to other people who are scammers so that those people will have more reliable contacts of people who are likely to be scammed. You should be on the lookout for all types of scams, not just the type that affect you, because these lists of scam victims will circulate among all types of scam rings: lottery scams, romance scams, charity scams, anything fraudulent. They are buying and selling these lists of scam victims. Another thing we recommend is do your homework. Take that extra few minutes when the emotional part of your brain is kicking in and you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, I can get 100 cans of baby formula for $10. Or, oh my gosh, I'm about to be arrested because the IRS just texted me. Just take an extra second, take a step back, and just think about it. Don't sign up for unsolicited services or purchase unsolicited products without researching the investment. Google the product or service or investment in question with the word scam after it, That's a great way to find out if people have complained about this before. If someone is trying to scam you, chances are they are trying to scam a lot of other people along with you. And other people will have complained about this on the internet. People love to complain on the internet. People will say that something's a scam. And so when you Google this product or service or investment with the word scam after it, if it's a scam, it's going to come up that someone has complained about it in the past. And finally, asking for help. Asking a trusted family member or a friend to help you with financial management. A fresh set of eyes can identify a scam before you're victimized. They're looking at these text messages, these phone calls, and these emails, and the emotional part of their brain is not really going off as much as yours is because they're not the one who's being threatened with arrest, or they're not the one who's being offered this product or service that's too good to be true. And so if you have someone who is trusted on your side, this again goes back to knowing that it's not your fault and being able to ask for help and getting over that embarrassment that some scam victims feel, then you can have that other set of eyes that can help you identify which things are legitimate and which things might be fraudulent. The Center for Elder Law and Justice also has a lot of resources to assist scam victims over age 60. We can assist with running credit reports, implementing credit freezes and fraud alerts, reporting scams to government authorities, like Vikram's going to talk about in a little bit, and education regarding additional steps to prevent any further damage, any further scamming. Filing a police report is very important as far as asking for help when you've been scammed. A lot of people may think that if the scammer is overseas, the police report won't do them any good. Some police departments are not as educated as others are, and they may say that it's not worth the paperwork. It always is. Police reports first are necessary to pursue victim compensation funds in New York State. If the scammer is local or is known to you, this could result in arrest or restitution if that's the outcome that you want. Police reports are also necessary if you want to dispute a charge or prove that you've been a victim of a scam in order to try to get your money back from those methods of payment that we discussed that are difficult to get their money back from, but not always impossible. If you want to prove that your gift card transaction was fraudulent and you have a police report, it's going to work more in your favor. If you want to try and put in that financial fraud kill chain and you have a police report, that's proof that you've been the victim of a scam. There's a lot of things where you need to prove that you've been a victim, and filing a police report is a really good way to do that. Also, you can report the scam to state and federal authorities. CELJ has a scam portal to assist with reporting to the FTC. Vikram's going to talk about reporting to the FTC and everything else the FTC can do for you in a little bit. The Attorney General's office and the FTC also keep track of scam patterns. These reports aid in investigations of these patterns and allow the Attorney General and the FTC and organizations like them to target larger scam networks and prosecute them. The Attorney General's office in New York, for example, has been taking reports about robocalls, and they may not be able to go after the scammers because the scammers are overseas, but they are leading a 50-state coalition right now to go after telephone companies that they feel are not doing enough to stop robocalls. And so they take all of these reports. They may not investigate every robocall that comes to you initially, but they can take all these reports and then tell them to Verizon, to AT&T, to your cell phone carrier and say, look, you're not doing enough to stop these scam calls and these robocalls from happening. So, they are using that information from those reports to target those companies and get real change. Right, and now I'm going to turn it over to Vikram to talk about how the FTC can help consumers.
Thank you, Erin. And before I begin, I just want to echo everything you've said and to remind folks that if you've been the victim of a scam, it is not your fault. It happens to everyone. It's happened to senior financial crimes investigators that I've worked with. It happened to our own FTC fraud investigators, and it's happened to our attorneys. So this is something that you should not feel embarrassed about. And it's absolutely something that we want to help as the FTC in making sure that we investigate and we crack down on and stop. So now I want to talk a little bit about how the FTC can help consumers and what we principally do. So the FTC's mission in the consumer protection arena is to bring cases against companies and individuals that take people's money and give them nothing in return or steal their private personal information and use that to scam you or to scam your friends or your family. And when we have enough to bring a case in court, we ask the court to freeze the assets of scammers and then use that money, hopefully, to return the money to the victims if we win. We also have a very strong educational mandate. So speaking to groups like yours and many others, we provide information about all the scams that we see, how to spot them, how to stop them, and how to help people, who've been affected by these really prevalent fraud rings that are going on. We also interact with the public. And how do we do that? When you've been the victim of a scam or you see some red flag of a scam, or you want to take action against something you know is going on in your community, you can complain. You can complain to us. You can complain to other agencies. We have a database and a portal called Consumer Sentinel that collects all those complaints and makes it available not only to us, but to our investigative partners in attorney general's offices, state and local law enforcement, and federal law enforcement as well. And what do we do with Consumer Sentinel information and all those complaints that come in? We look, first of all, for patterns of scams and see what is going on, what is common to all these scams going on in different communities. And also, more importantly, are there the same scammers targeting different people? And is it not just you? Is it your community being affected by this one person or group of people? We isolate those and then we build cases from that information. And most importantly, we take what we see from all the consumer information that you put in your reports to us, and we modify our educational materials, and we refine our presentations, and when we want to go out to your communities like yours and talk about how to spot and prevent scams, it really helps inform our mission. So that's why it's really vital. One of the first things you should do if you are aware of a scam or if you're a victim of a scam is to really use our portal and report it to the FTC. So how do you do that? So the principal way you report to the FTC is to go to our website. Our website for the agency is www.ftc.gov, but there's a simple link. If you want to write it down, if you have a pen and paper, I can read to you right this second. It's called reportfraud.ftc.gov. And that will take you directly to our portal to report scams. And you can put in all the information about the scam that you know about, and it'll go directly to us. State attorneys general, while they do have access to Consumer Sentinel, they may have their own portals. I know New York does. So you may feel free to also go directly to the state attorney general's website, and then they may have a separate portal that you should probably report to as well. And finally, I want to talk about something very important, because it's not just civil enforcement agencies like the FTC who look at fraud. We have a large criminal network as well that looks at this from a criminal perspective, and that includes the FBI, the Treasury Department, and the IRS, and they have their own criminal investigators at the Justice Department. All of them are equally important in having access to the information they need to crack down on fraud. And how do they access that information? Sometimes we at the FTC report that based on complaints you give us. If we see something that is clearly criminal and we think that it's better handled in the criminal arena, we will refer cases to our federal counterparts or our state criminal counterparts if we see something clearly that belongs in the criminal arena. Now, how is that information about scams and frauds handled from the criminal side? There's something called the Internet Crimes Complaint Center. And that's a really important resource for all of you to know about, because if you get scammed, if a scammer takes your money and you think that there's clearly a criminal basis for this behavior, you definitely should report it to the Internet Crimes Complaint Center in addition to reporting it to us and to your state attorney generals. The Internet Crime Complaint Center collects all these complaints and again makes that information available to pretty much every law enforcement agency in the country. So it's important that you report it there as well. The important thing to know about when reporting to the FTC is that you do not have to be the victim of a fraud. You can simply, it could be your friend, it could be your family, it could be your neighbor. I mean, if someone you know has been the victim of activity, or even if you see a suspicious pattern of behavior, you can report that to the FTC. So for example, we often get reports about robocallers and rings using the same numbers. They may not have taken any information from anyone, but if you see and your friends say, hey, have you seen this number? It's been calling me about a fake auto warranty scam when my warranty is expiring, and like, oh yeah, I got that number too. You can share that information not only amongst yourselves, but also to us. And that helps us identify the numbers that might be used for those kinds of scams and might see if there's commonality involved and really help us in investigating it. And the other thing I want to emphasize is, and I cannot emphasize this more enough, you have to put in as much information as you can when you do your reports to us. Why is that important? Because the more information we have, the easier it is for us to identify who's the scammer, how they're scamming people, and hopefully, if we're successful enough to build a case from it, to be able to ask for money back or for restitution. You can also report anonymously. Reporting anonymously is fine. There may be many reasons why you would want to do that. We'd encourage you to put in as much information as you can are comfortable with, because it only helps us in our investigations. There's also a phone number at the bottom of that slide you can call if you don't have easy access to the internet, which may be often the case in some rural areas. So if you have access to a phone, give us a quick call on that helpline. It's 1-877-FTC-HELP. I know Erin talked a little bit about what you're supposed to do in the immediate post action after you've been scammed, but there's a couple of specific things relevant to identity theft that I want to talk about. So all the consumer credit reporting agencies you should be contacting and be utilizing the tools like Erin just talked about. So that's either monitoring your credit, freezing your credit, if that's absolutely necessary. You should be doing that in the event you suspect identity theft. You should also contact the companies that may have your information in terms of whether it's your social security number, whether it's your credit card number, your bank account number, payment services companies like PayPal or Venmo, if you use peer-to-peer payment systems like that, lenders if you have any other kinds of lines of credit, and you should also be reporting to law enforcement. Identity theft in particular is very rampant, and it's one of the harder crimes to prosecute because it often happens under such, different layers of secrecy, and it's very difficult to trace sometimes. The actors might be overseas, maybe operating in organized rings, that it's really important in the case of identity theft to have an active plan and be engaged with your credit reporting agencies, your banks, and any others that might have your personal information, in addition to being engaged with law enforcement. So I'll let the wonderful staff at the Center for Elder Law and Justice talk a little bit more about this, but there are resources to call and ask for help. You're never alone in this. That's one, if there's any one takeaway that I want you to have from this presentation, is that you do not need to be scared to ask for help or guidance or support, because scammers prey on every aspect of our vulnerability as humans. There are things we do not know. There are things that are over our head, and that's okay. But that's why it's okay to call and ask for advice. Is this a scam? Is this not a scam? I've been scammed. What do I do now? We've gone over some of those steps that you need to take right now in this presentation. But if you want someone there to really walk you through it, you are not alone. You certainly will get the guidance you'll need to really figure out what to do. And understandably, anytime you've been the victim of a scam, and I've been the victim of scams myself, it's a nerve-wracking time, it's a stressful time, and it never, ever, ever is inappropriate to ask for help. It is always okay. Erin, did you want to talk a little bit about the hotline?
Sure, thanks for that. The Center for Elder Law and Justice operates a free senior legal advice helpline. This is for seniors across New York State, aged 55 and over. The helpline provides brief legal services and legal referrals. The helpline number is on your screen. We staff it with live attorneys through Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. So if you call during those hours, you will get an attorney right away. If you call outside of those hours, you can leave a voicemail and those will be returned within 3 business days. You can call this number if you have questions about a email or phone call or text that you received. You don't know if it's a scam, or if you think that you might have been scammed and you don't really know where to go from here, we can advise you about that. If you live within the 8 counties of Western New York, and you are over age 60, our regular elder abuse unit through Center for Elder Law and Justice can provide also full scope representation. And you can get to that by either calling the helpline and asking for the elder abuse unit, or directly by calling CELJ's intake line at 716-853-3087. And the elder abuse unit can help with those things that we talked about: reporting to the Attorney General, reporting to the FTC, looking at your credit report, instituting credit freezes or fraud alerts, looking at your bank statements and identifying who needs to be notified that you've been scammed. The things that we talked about, like what you can do in the face of a scam to recover from it, the Center for Elder Law and Justice can help seniors with those options. And our contact information is up right there up on the screen. For the helpline, the phone number is toll free and it's 1-844-481-0973. For the elder abuse unit at Center for Elder Law and Justice, you would call 716-853-3087. And I am going to turn it over to Christine, who is going to manage any of the questions that you've been putting in the chat box.
Thank you, Erin and Vikram. At this point, we have no questions. I think you guys did a great job of covering a lot of material. We can give the participants a couple of seconds. If they'd like to type a question in the chat box, you can do so now. While we're waiting for that, there were a couple comments about the presentation and slides. Both the slides and the presentation will be available on the same website you registered at erie.gov/ELD, probably at some point next week. Also, tomorrow is our final presentation for the summer series at 10 a.m. We will be having a presentation on estate and long-term care planning and asset protection. So if you haven't registered for that and you're interested, please do so before tomorrow. And I would like to thank Erin and Vikram again. We have no further questions. Is there anything else, Erin and Vikram, that you'd like to discuss?
I think we've covered everything from my end. Just everyone, if you can take one message away from this, it's not your fault, and please reach out for help if you need it.
Oh, there is one question that just came in. Can you provide advice on how to get a police to make a police report?
To make a police report, you can contact either the non-emergency number for your local police department, or you can call 911 and ask them to send an officer to your home. With police reports for scams, sometimes you may have to be a little bit insistent. Some police officers are less educated about this than others as far as scams. They may have less experience dealing with scams. And so they may tell you that it's not worth the paperwork, or that, you know, the likelihood of catching this scammer on their end is going to be very low. And that may be true, but if you're insistent about it, they will take that police report from you. And then you've got that proof that you've been the victim of a scam, which is so necessary for so many of the things you need to do to recover from it.
Okay, let me see.
One thing I'll add to that is that you should actually be very persistent. I think the squeaky wheel gets the oil, as they say. So you should, if you don't get a reply back from a police officer or a law enforcement agency, you should absolutely follow up with them. And I would not actually hesitate to call a supervisor if needed, because sometimes, you know, that actually gets the wheels moving.
Thank you for sharing that information, Vikram. Okay, I don't see any other questions, so I would like to thank everybody again. Erin and Vikram, thank you for joining and taking the time to share all this great information. And thank you all the attendees who have decided to join today's presentation. Hopefully I'll see you again tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Have a great day, everyone.